This video is brought to you by True Tales of Buried Treasure, the largest collection of old treasure magazines in the West. On our website, you can search for individual treasure stories by region, or buy our original magazines themselves. To pay us a visit, please click on the link in the description. Enjoy. Tucked away somewhere in the foothills of the Rocky Mountains in Alberta, Canada, there's a legendary treasure known as the Lost Lemon Mine, or sometimes called the Lost Murder Mine. This fabled mine is said to be incredibly rich, but it also might have led many men to their deaths. Whether the mine is real or just a myth is up for debate, but its story is as thrilling as British Columbia's famous Lost Creek Mine, and both legends are full of mystery. Most people familiar with the Lost Lemon story agree that if the mine does exist, it would likely be found in the Highwood River area, or the Livingstone Range, about 35 miles southeast of Calgary. Recently, interest in the mine has flared up again, thanks to a 75-year-old Stoney Indian named Bearspaw and the publication of a booklet titled The Lost Lemon Mine Greatest Mystery of the Canadian Rockies by Frontiers Unlimited of Calgary. The tale told in this book and in various newspaper articles is full of intrigue. Oddly enough, the possible key to proving the mine's existence lies in an old British Columbia newspaper. One of the most important figures in keeping the Lost Lemon legend alive was the late Senator Daniel Edward Riley, who had a long-standing fascination with the story. According to him, a prospecting expedition set out from Tobacco Plains, Montana, in the spring of 1870. This area spans about 20 by 30 miles, with 2/3 in Montana and the rest in British Columbia. Among the group were two men, Joe, or Mark, Bill, or Frank, Lemon, or Lemon, and a man known only as Blackjack. These two eventually broke off from the main group and headed south with a large half-breed band led by a man named Lanous, who offered protection against the Blackfeet, a fiercely hostile tribe at the time. Lemon and Blackjack eventually parted ways with the band and followed an Indian trail up High River towards Tobacco Plains. As they trekked through the area, they stumbled upon gold, finding it from grassroots to bedrock. They dug 2 shafts and even discovered the Mother Lode, a gold-streaked ledge, purely by chance. However, things took a dark turn when, after a heated argument, Lemon killed Blackjack with a camp axe while he slept. Terrified and alone, Lemon spent the night pacing by the fire, haunted by eerie sounds unbeknownst to him. These were caused by 2 Stoney Indians, William and Daniel Bendow, who had been trailing them and witnessed both the discovery of gold and the murder. At dawn, Lemon fled, leaving the camp behind. The Bendow brothers took the horses and reported everything to Chief Bearspaw and Morley. Fearing a gold rush that could devastate their land, Bearspaw swore the brothers to secrecy, a secret that has been kept ever since. Lemon eventually made it to Fort Benton, where he flashed his gold samples, which traders described as a body of solid gold with a little rock shot into it. He finally confessed his crime to an old friend, a priest at the Roman Catholic mission back in Tobacco Plains, Montana. And thus, the legend of the Lost Lemon Mine was born, shrouded in mystery and bloodshed. Lemon showed off the gold he'd found, but soon began to slip into bouts of insanity that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The priest, who seemed a bit too interested in wealth, quickly sent a half-breed mountaineer named John McDougall to find the mine. Guided by Lemon's directions, McDougall located the site, buried Blackjack, and covered the grave to protect it from animals. But as soon as McDougall left, the Stoney Indians scattered rocks all over the area, erasing any trace of the murder so completely that no one has been able to find the site since. Lemon spent the winter in Tobacco Plains with the priest, struggling with recurring fits of madness. Meanwhile, word of his gold discovery spread like wildfire through Montana and Alberta. By spring, a large group of men had gathered, eager to find the mine. They convinced a confused Lemon to lead them, and he agreed. But after months of searching, they returned to Montana empty-handed with Lemon, who was now completely out of his mind. Unable to find the mine and facing the wrath of the angry miners who thought he'd tricked them, Lemon went violently mad and had to be restrained and kept under constant watch. The priest wasn't ready to give up, though. He sent another expedition, this time led by McDougal, the man who had buried Blackjack. But McDougal got sidetracked on his way to meet the group at Crow's Nest Lake. He ended up at Fort Kip, where he drank himself into a stupor and died. The following year, yet another expedition was defeated by raging forest fires. Still undeterred, the priest sent out another group, once again with Lemon as the guide. But as they neared the site of the tragedy, Lemon's mind unraveled once more, and the search was abandoned again. Finally discouraged, the priest gave up. But private expeditions quickly took over, continuing the hunt for the elusive mine still without success. Enter Lafayette French, a man determined to succeed where others had failed. Born in Pennsylvania around 1840, French had worked for Standard Oil, hunted buffalo, traded, prospected, and ranched. He arrived in Alberta in the early 1880s and became one of the first ranchers in the southern part of the province. But when he reached the foothills in his search for the mine, French was suddenly struck by a mysterious illness that nearly killed him. He barely made it back to civilization, and Senator Riley believed French had fallen victim to the mine's strange hoodoo. French supposedly had a map sketched by Lemon that showed the mine's location. Renewing his vow to find the treasure, he spent the next 15 years venturing into the mountains, spending his savings and ruining his health in the process. In the early 1890s, French brought along 2 survivors of the original expeditions, hoping they'd recognize some landmarks. But again, he came up empty. French pinned his hopes on William Bendow, the Stony brave who, along with his brother, had witnessed Blackjack's murder years before. French housed and fed Bendow and his followers for a winter and offered him a fortune, 25 horses and 25 head of cattle, to reveal the mine's location. Bendow agreed, and they set out into the mountains. But on the second day, Bendow suddenly turned back, terrified by some superstitious fear, or, as French suspected, fear of Chief Jacob Bearspaw. But French wasn't ready to quit. He persuaded Bendow to guide him to the mine once more. That night, Bendow died suddenly and mysteriously. Convinced that Bendow's death was linked to his intention to reveal the tribal secret, his followers took his body back to the Morley Reserve, where his son-in-law soon died in the same strange way. This further convinced the Stony people that the Bendows had angered the spirit Wakanda. Just days before his death, Lafayette French took one last trek into the foothills during the winter of 1912. He spent the night in an abandoned cabin, but early the next morning, the cabin caught fire. French managed to escape, but he was badly burned. Despite the excruciating pain, he crawled 2 miles to the Bedingfield Ranch, which would later be purchased by the Prince of Wales and become famous as the EP Ranch. These final hours of Lafayette French's life are at the heart of one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the lost lemon mine. A few hours before the deadly fire, French had written to a friend, boasting that he had finally found it. But before he could meet his friend, French was dead, taking the secret with him to the grave. Senator Riley believed that the search for the lost lemon mine had claimed more lives than just those of Blackjack and French. He spoke of a skeleton found near Old Man River, clutching a bag of gold, and of 2 wounded men who, in the 1890s, stopped at a ranch in the foothills carrying gold dust. They disappeared the next morning, possibly having found the mine only to be followed and killed by vengeful Indians. In 1961, Tom Primrose, editor of the Calgary Albertan, interviewed King Bearspaw, the grandson of Chief Jacob Bearspaw. King Bearspaw believed he had uncovered the mine's secret. Primrose, who had done extensive research into the lost lemon mine legend, discovered that some years after French's death, gold ore was found in the ruins of the cabin where French died. However, it was later revealed that the gold had been salted by a Montana miner who had smuggled it into Alberta. Primrose's stories about King Bearspaw and the lost mine were picked up by many Canadian newspapers. The Bearspaw family's connection to the mine had a long history. King's grandfather, Chief Jacob Bearspaw, had sworn his tribesmen to secrecy about the mine. Jacob passed the secret to his son Moses, who became chief, but Moses never told his own son, King. Determined to find and use the cursed gold, King Bearspaw gave up his position as future chief and his rights and security as a treaty Indian in 1921 to begin a 40-year search for the mine. During the blizzard of 1931, King Bearspaw lost a pack horse when it was blown off a narrow ledge, breaking its back in the crotch of a tree. The gold rush of 1931 followed the discovery of color in the Livingstone Range. Hundreds of people, including several women, joined the search, but were either defeated by hardships or turned back by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, who only allowed the well-equipped to proceed. It was later discovered that the rush had been prompted by the discovery of iron pyrites, fool's gold. 2 years later, more people searched the fallen Timber Creek area when other promising prospects were found, but those too soon dried up. Only King Bearspaw refused to give up. In November 1961, editor Primrose interviewed King Bearspaw again. The determined Indian believed he had finally found the mine, and a few months earlier, he had sold a single nugget to an American for $40. However, when King brought in samples to be assayed, they were nearly worthless. Primrose commented, "King keeps looking for the mine, but I'm afraid it's a hopeless cause." And now historian and archivist Hugh Dempsey of the Glenbow Foundation in Calgary has taken up the story. Through careful research, he has uncovered some surprising details. Despite nearly a century of searching, no gold in paying amounts has ever been found in the supposed location of the lost lemon mine. Everyone agrees that the area has been thoroughly searched. Also, the so-called priest from Tobacco Plains who befriended Lemon was actually a French-Canadian named Jean Leroux. Though he had studied for the priesthood, Leroux had fled west after a scandal, casting doubt on his integrity. Hugh Dempsey uncovered that Leroux, the so-called priest, had actually sparked a fake gold rush in 1862, though his reasons remain unclear. In 1868, a man named Frank Lemon reported that his partner had been killed by Indians, though he didn't mention the partner's name. Lemon also claimed to have found signs of gold and later organized an expedition to locate his find. But after weeks of searching, the group returned empty-handed and furious, convinced that Lemon had swindled them. Dempsey also noted that no Stoney Indians had the surname Bendow. Dempsey eventually concluded that Leroux, whom the Indians called the pretended priest, had likely fabricated the entire myth of the lost lemon mine, also known as the murder mine. Dempsey even offered evidence suggesting that Blackjack was actually a caribou prospector named Nehemiah T. Smith. As further proof that the mine might be fictional, Dempsey cited an old British Columbia news article. On June 16, 1882, the Victoria Daily Colonist published a piece simply titled Blackjack. The article described Blackjack as one of Caribou's early prospectors who had once owned rich claims and lived like a king. The report mentioned that after a long illness, Blackjack had been cared for in a hospital and, with his health improving, was eager to return to his homeland. The article ended with a plea for citizens to help him afford the journey back, which was supposed to happen the very day the article was published. This means that Blackjack was alive a full 13 years after he was supposedly murdered by Lemon. A theory gaining traction today suggests that Lemon and his partner, whoever that might have been, simply stole gold dust from British Columbia miners and made their way to the High River area, where they concocted the story of the mine. If Lemon did kill his partner, it might have been to keep all the loot for himself. Some supporters of this theory believe that there is indeed gold in the Livingstone Range gold hidden by Lemon. The legend of the lost lemon mine, or lost murder mine, continues to thrive, with treasure hunters still combing the Rocky Mountain foothills, convinced that the gold is out there. Who knows? They might just prove it exists. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to read the original article or purchase the magazine from which it was taken, please check out our website, truetalesofburiedtreasure.com.